Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Wake Up Later with me, Sonia P. And guess, how are you doing? It's Wednesday, 14th of May. It is exactly 5 p.m. British summertime. British summertime to you. How are you diddling? Hello to everybody in the comments. I can see in the comments they're all talking about what a beautiful day it is today, and it has been fairly chem-free, hasn't it? Although that won't stop them. You know that, kids. You know it. How are you doing? I hope you are absolutely well. Welcome to the show that knows just because a prime minister says lots of words that make the citizens feel heard, it doesn't actually mean he means it. And you lot are savvy enough to know that, right? Of course, he wanted us to believe he was saying what he was saying earlier this week, and we will look at it. We will look at what Sir Keir Rodney Starmer said this week. And congratulations to our competition winner, Kai. Please send me your address and it will be passed to the lovely Tom Godfrey, who will be giving away a signed copy of this to you, Kai, and who was with us on Monday. Send me your details, Kai. Send me your details. And thank you to all of you for all your wonderful messages in entering our competitions. I truly, truly appreciate it. Really, I do. It's lovely. Lovely to hear from you all. It really is. And thank you for your suggestions for Deception Detective, who has said to me, come up with some ideas, videos that perhaps you would like me to analyze, because I'd asked him to come on the show. He said that wasn't really the kind of thing that he was interested in, but he will be very much interested in looking at videos. And so far I've had like Lucy Letby Doctors, Michael Barrymore. Feel free to let me know, Sonia Poulton at sky.com, who you would like for me to put forward to him to analyze and perhaps pick a particular piece that you've seen that you would like analyzed. That would also be extremely helpful. How are you all? Hello, beautiful, beautiful people. How are you? Hello, John and Trinity and Penny and Jilly and Simon and Lisa and Crazy Bunny and Kim and Katie and Dalbraith. And did I already say Gillian and Colin? How are you all? Crazy Bunny, I see you're in a shed. How are you all? I hope you're well. Very interesting today. Rupert Lowe, I'm sure many of you know him, politician Rupert Lowe, formerly of Reform. The Metropolitan Police have confirmed that they are dropping the investigation into him. And Rupert Lowe tweeted, the Metropolitan Police have today confirmed that they are dropping their investigation into the false allegations that I made threats against the Reform Party chairman. Full statement. And there is indeed a full statement. And Rupert Lowe goes on to say that this was not normal political infighting. He believes that it was a sinister attempt to weaponize the criminal justice system against him. And that followed what he believed were constructive criticisms of Nigel Farage. And he said the problem is that he himself, Rupert Lowe, was standing firm on illegal migration. And he was pushing for reform to be run more democratically and not as a vehicle to stroke one man's ego. Of course, he was talking about Nigel Farage when he said that, but it's very serious what he says. What he's actually claiming is quite literally that these were essentially false allegations where our system, our completely exhausted system where we don't have enough resources, was used against him. Very serious charge he's making there. Very serious indeed. And, we shall see. We shall see the outcome of that. But I'm sure he's very pleased with the result of that. He's been dealing with rather a lot since he decided to actually make his opinions known to do with Nigel Farage. I mean, I don't necessarily think that if you want to stay in a party, you can't necessarily be criticizing the leader of it, not publicly. You simply can't. And I see Shin. How are you, Shin? I hope you are well, darling. And Father Ted creator Graham Linehan was in court on Monday at Westminster Magistrates Court to deny two charges. One of harassing transgender activist Sophia Brooks on social media, and another of damaging Sophia's mobile in October. Graham Linehan spoke only to confirm his name and date of birth and to deny the charges. The Deputy District Judge Louise Balmain told Linehan his trial would take place on September the 4th this year at the same court, Westminster Magistrates, and Graham was freed on bail with the condition not to contact the complainant directly or indirectly. And I've met Graham a few times. I filmed him for my trans doc. He has been a huge supporter of women throughout the whole gender issue, and it will be interesting to see how this one develops. Indeed. And talking about developing and talking about courts, Court of Appeal. I talk frequently on this show about miscarriages of justice, both those which have been confirmed to be and those which are suspected. And this week, the Court of Appeal ruled that Peter Sullivan, given the tabloid name of the Beast of Birkenhead, was an innocent man. An innocent man, despite spending 38 sodding years in prison for a murder he did not commit. He did not commit. Peter's conviction is thought to be the longest running miscarriage of justice in British history, although there are people inside who may also vie for that unfortunate title. Those include Jeremy Bamber, who is hoping to be granted appeal for the conviction of the murder of his mother, father, sister, and her twin sons. Thank you, Danielle. I appreciate that. Then there is Clive Freeman, a man who has been inside for well beyond 30 years, who has always insisted he was not guilty of the crime of murder, who increasingly, in fact, the whole thing increasingly looks like a murder didn't take place at all, that a crime did not take place. And but Clive has always refused to admit his guilt. And so he's actually now served double his time because he refused to say, I'm guilty of a crime he said he's not guilty for. And do you know what? If I was in that situation, I'd probably do the same thing. Honestly, the idea of admitting to a crime that you haven't done is reprehensible to me. It's beyond it. And poor Peter Sullivan. So he was found guilty of the 1986 murder of 21-year-old Diane Sindall. She'd been beaten, raped, left in an alleyway in Birkenhead, Merseyside. Mr. Sullivan was jailed in 1987 and had always maintained his innocence. And at the centre of this is that bloody organisation. I'm going to say bloody a lot today. CCRC, Criminal Cases Review Commission. They declined to refer his case back in 2016. He lost his own appeal bid in 2019. 2 years later, he again asked the CCRC to refer his case. And new tests ordered by the commission revealed Mr. Sullivan's DNA was not present on any samples preserved at the time. All of this was unfolding yesterday. In the Court of Appeal in London, lawyers for Mr. Sullivan told the judge that the new evidence showed that Miss Sindall's killer was not the defendant. And I have to say that Peter Sullivan has handled this like a true gent. His first concern is for the family of Diane Sindall and how for them, obviously, this is a very, very painful time. And indeed it is, because the problem is the person who really killed her is still out there. Might have passed by now, but it wasn't Peter Sullivan. Peter Sullivan attended via video link. You can see in these images at the top, that was Peter Sullivan when he was 30 and convicted. And the cartoon is him watching via video link. And it was very emotional, actually. He was watching via video link from HMP Wakefield. He listened as the convictions were quashed. Can you imagine nearly 40 years inside and finally listening to lies about you finally being sort of untangled in the Court of Appeal? It's very, very painful. He appears to be a very decent individual. He put out a statement, said, I lost my liberty 4 decades ago over a crime I did not commit. What happened to me was very wrong, but does not detract that what happened was a heinous and most terrible loss of life. He said that the truth shall set you free. It is unfortunate that it does not give a timescale as we advance towards resolving the wrongs done to me. I am not angry. I am not bitter. I am simply anxious to return to my loved ones and family, as I've got to make the most of what is left of the existence I am granted in this world. That's an astonishingly, humble statement to put out after they've wronged him like that. And thank you, Fred and Simon, for the super chat there. Very much appreciate it. And now, of course, police are back out. They've got new DNA evidence. They're looking now for a DNA match. But I think that there are parallels to be drawn with present cases, which many of us believe are they're founded on they're unsafe convictions, and I think probably one of the most prominent ones, other than the two that I've already mentioned, is probably Lucy Letby, former neonatal nurse. We've talked about Lucy Letby a lot around here, and it was very interesting. Dr. Phil Hammond, who's done quite a lot of work into looking at the convictions of Lucy Letby, obviously the British nurse. She was convicted of the murder of 7 babies and convicted of the further 7 attempts of another further 7 babies. And many people have come forward and said it's absolutely outrageous. And in fact, there's a whole bank of brilliant experts, including the man that they used against her at trial, and he's come out saying no, that's not how my work is. That's not what my work is about. Actually, my work says this, and that's Dr. Shuley. But anyway, Dr. Phil Hammond noted something very interesting. He said about expert witnesses can be wrong, and in both the Peter Sullivan case and the Lucy Letby case, experts have been absolutely prominent at that forefront of both these convictions. And what's interesting is that 2 forensic dentists who testified against Peter Sullivan, they swore the bite marks could only have come from Sullivan. In fact, it was so significant, the evidence that they gave, that the prosecuting barrister said this evidence was so critical, and I'm quoting, the jury could forget the rest of the case. Alas, as Dr. Phil Hammond points out, the experts couldn't have been more wrong. There is absolutely no way that was Peter Sullivan's bite marks. And we've seen it again. We've seen it again with Lucy Letby, and of course it's all now coming on top for Lucy Letby. I'd be very, very surprised now if the CCRC refuse her leave to appeal. I think it's almost impossible now, given everything we know. And before we bring in our first guest, I just want to comment on this. You might recognize her. Her name is Lucy Connolly. She's herself in the Court of Appeal tomorrow. I doubt she'll be in there in person, probably via a video link, but who knows? Lucy Connolly, of course, is the wife of a former Conservative councillor, jailed last year for a social media post about migrants. And her social media post was on the day of the Southport attack, when Axel Rudakabana murdered 3 young girls and seriously harmed others. And Lucy Connolly had tweeted, like in a great deal of anger and pain, like many of us. And she was sentenced to 31-month prison term, and widespread criticism of the case, actually, and a lot of people talking about two-tier Kia. And the charges against Connolly, as I say, were as a consequence of this X outburst. And actually, she deleted the tweet less than 4 hours later, having had time to reflect. By that point, it had been viewed by over 310,000. Well, it had been viewed over 310,000 times. She was interviewed by the police on the 6th of August. She was charged 3 days later. She remained in custody throughout the proceedings. And I think that Lucy Connolly and I would almost certainly have almost nothing in common, other than I think her sentencing is absolutely egregious, really problematic. And I'm not alone. Former Prime Minister Liz Truss has also said something quite similar. She has actually said Lucy Connolly should be released immediately and reunited with her family. The severity of her sentence is completely unjustifiable and a shocking example of two-tier justice, which now prevails in Britain. And Dal Braith, I have to agree, says, bring back free speech. You got it. You got it in the comments, kids. You know that. So anyway, she'll be in the Court of Appeal tomorrow. As I said, she'll be appealing her sentence on the grounds that the trial judge erred in assessing the offence's severity and failed to give sufficient weight to mitigating factors. And one of those mitigating factors is the death of Lucy's 19-month-old son following a hospital error and the psychiatric difficulties that followed for her. And they also point to her clean record and to the fact that she removed the post within hours. Pretty awful stuff. Oh, nice feedback. Thanks. I'm not sure what that means. And I've got 2 minutes before I'm bringing in my next guest. So it's given me enough time just to talk briefly about PM Keir Starmer, because we just talked about him there, didn't we? He's had a busy week. First of all, allegations that an arsonist has been setting fire to his various properties. 21-year-old suspect arrested by Scotland Yard's counter-terrorism unit. I understand the 21-year-old remains in custody. But then Sir Keir decided that the UK seems to be listening to reform rather more than people are listening to Labour. So Starmer decided to become more reform. And he gave a press conference in which he essentially said that if you want to live in the UK, you should speak English. That's common sense. So we're raising English language requirements across every main immigration route. He tweeted that settlement in the UK is a privilege that is earned, not a right. These words seem incredibly hollow from a man with his history, incredibly hollow, and talked about, us becoming an island of strangers. But where does this stop exactly? Are we going to, are other countries going to insist that expats, for example, in Spain, learn Spanish? I'm just wondering. I don't believe a word that Keir Starmer says. I mean, I think as a baseline, there really shouldn't be a problem that if you actually want to emigrate to the UK, you should be able to speak English. I think that's very basic stuff, right? Basic. That's life, but not as we know it. Said, surprised they never blame climate change for it. You can never trust Starmer, Stephen. And honestly, Cadders, I have to agree. Starmer's is absolutely bricking it. I think that no matter what anybody wants to think about reform, I think that reform have definitely given a boot up the jacksie of Keir Starmer at least. And Jan, that is a good point. All the chat about how many people came in by boat today, how many tomorrow. Is Keir still chatting? He's chatting. Elboy, that is not possible. You cannot impregnate me. Not least, it is not physically possible anymore. Sorry, not going to happen. There you go. Right, I'm going to bring in my first guest. And because I'm a fan. I love it when I can bring in a guest who I'm a fan of, because I have so many guests who, as you know, I can barely stand. But there you go. Let's bring him in. He's lovely. Francis O'Neill, artist and writer. How are you, Francis?
Hi, Sonia. I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
You know I'm a fan, don't you, Francis?
Oh, thank you very much. I'm a fan of yours as well.
Oh, thank you. Lovely mutual appreciation society here. I didn't actually bring on Francis to flirt with him and tell him what a fan I am. But I do actually want to talk to him about an incredible piece of work, actually two incredible pieces of work, a series of incredible work on your Substack. And you've done quite a lot into predictive programming. Now, predictive programming is a subject that our viewers are very, very interested in, right? And some people literally saying predictive programming, that might be the first time they've ever heard of it, right? So give us an overview of what predictive programming is, and then I want to start delving in deeper into your Substack articles.
Well, if you've never heard of it before, it's the kind of subject that's going to make the listener think that the person talking about is a crank, wherever you are, if you start launching with predictive programming. But if you wake up to the idea that there are sort of heinous state crimes taking place, for which there's no justice and people escape scot-free, and there's a hidden layer to what you receive from the media. So for example, the obvious one would obviously be things like the COVID scam and the vaccine scam that we've been through recently. So if you become aware that there's a double layer to what the media is telling you, that there's a whole aspect of life that you never get to hear from in the media, you become aware that it operates on two levels, one for the discerning and one for the initiated, and one for the uninitiated, the people who have no idea what's going on. And they tend to be the butt of the agendas that are rolling out all over the place around us. You've just been mentioning them, things like immigration, or we're exploring there what could be the hidden agenda behind Keir Starmer introducing English tests for people, or what could be the hidden agenda? Right. Lucy Letby, why are we taught not to trust experts? What are they doing with the jury system? What's going on behind that case? What is the agenda there? But now these questions may have rational answers that you might find in a benign world where there weren't massive lies being told you all the time. But if you can accept that there are two layers to the news, then sometimes you might find that these things are hinted at in the news. So I explored in my article a series of what they call predictive programming, where they seed in the news the idea that the Twin Towers could be hit by planes, or that America could be attacked by terrorists, and they put stories like this into the X-Files and so on. Now, or onto The Simpsons, or as you see there, there's some major motion pictures like Armageddon featured these images. Now, what that does, if one of the things it does, it prepares the public for the idea that this is a possibility, that planes could fly into New York and not be shot down and not be intercepted and so on. And it allows for on a subconscious level, this is the really key thing. We all know, we can all see the images and we know it's just a story in a movie. It's just a story in the X-Files. It's just a story in The Simpsons. But propaganda in a lot of our life operates on our subconscious. So even though we all know the accepted and conventional understanding of these stories and these images, it could be that we're being primed in a slightly hypnotic way. And this is the idea of predictive programming. It prepares you to behave in a certain way. And one of the classic examples is the movies Contagion and Outbreak. So when we are told that there's going to be a viral outbreak in 2020, people go, and one of the most downloaded films were these films, Contagion and Outbreak. And they give people an idea of what the appropriate behavior is in the context of a pandemic. So people stay apart and they wear masks and they isolate and all this, but that's given to them, and it normalizes the abnormal for people in some ways. That's one of the potential, effects of the predictive programming.
So obviously, first question, obvious question, and that is, if people are able to predictively program us, then that means they have advance notice of an event. That would be a lot of people, would it not?
Yeah, so that's the difficulty I was just coming to there. So the difficulty in believing it is then you think, okay, well, if I'm advancing the theory that Contagion and Outbreak were predictive programming films, then that would require the Hollywood studios to have prior knowledge, or at least not necessarily prior knowledge in terms of the actors and the producers and so on, but somebody has signed off on that project with the intention of it being used in the way I'm describing. Now, what I found interesting over the past few years is that we used to think that, say, for example, with military films, that they might consult with somebody from the military and I'll consult with someone from the CIA for a spy film. But actually, it's documented in the mainstream media that some of the direction doesn't come from like the script writers in Hollywood looking for information from CIA. It comes from the CIA down into Hollywood. And so once you can accept that that's the direction of travel, then it's more comprehensible that some films could be implanted into the networks and into the public consciousness with an ulterior motive.
Now, there's some stuff in your article that I simply had no clue about, right? And one of them, in terms of predictive programming, and this is a film that I've watched a number of times, is to do with Neo in The Matrix as one perfect example. And you highlight that, and I think that's very interesting. And his passport expires 11th of September 2001, which is the date of 9/11. Well, this is legit, right, Francis?
Yeah, well, yeah, because I know this is legit because I didn't quite trust it myself. So that screenshot you've got that I used in my article is my own screenshot. So I went and checked the movie and I got the screenshot and turned it back. So now the interesting thing about Neo, people often think with The Matrix that this film is a rebel film. It's sort of exposing the nature of our reality, and it could be, but also you've got to remember that the two men who made it, brothers, they've become women now. Well, they haven't become women. No one can do that. They think they have. So they're kind of in line with the agenda. I see it as exposing a Gnostic view of the world, in where it's almost like there's they exist in this. Obviously, people don't know the movie. The hero, like Neo, he lives in pods, and it's a malevolent world. Everything's an illusion in the world, and you're getting sensory input into your brain, and everything's fake until you come out of that reality. So people see that as the process of awakening to state crimes. I think it might be something else. I think it might be the sort of Freemasonic Gnostic view that we live in a world with a malevolent creator. But the guy Neo, his name is new, and as you see there, something new was going to begin when his passport expired on September 11, 2001, and something new did. I think it brought in a lot of the removals of freedoms and the endless wars and the ramifications of which we are still suffering now.
There comes a point, though, in any investigation where you can't keep saying things are a coincidence, right? So, as you say in your piece, right, coincidence theorists will dismiss these as products of imaginative screenwriters, playwrights, advertisers, and animators. But literally, honestly, as an investigative journalist, there literally comes a point when it's like, I can't keep putting this down to coincidence. And that must have been the point that you hit, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a process of coming to understand the world in a different way that began on September 11, 2001, coincidentally. And so I've looked at these for a long time, and I've come to the conclusion that after a point now, with the predictive program is a difficult subject. There's certain things you can prove, like you can analyze a vaccine vial, or you can analyze whether masks work, and so on. but with predictive programming, it's just the accumulation. And so people can dismiss it. And that's why I say it was never a subject that I would start people off with. But it is an interesting subject. It's more kind of, it's more fun in a way to spot the illusions and the thing. And sometimes some of the parallels and the allusions that are made in the television, in the newspapers, and in the movies are so on point. Like some of these plots in, for example, the X-Files, which seems to be a vehicle for them to communicate with us in some way, because they talk about how police will be militarized and how. And now you could say that any imaginative scriptwriter could come up with that, but again, you say in the context of lots of other things. For example, here's a really good example: is the Economist with the paragliding Hamas. They've got a cartoon with paragliding Hamas, and I don't know of any paragliding Hamas.
I took an image of that. Let me just see, because I thought that was quite phenomenal. I did take an image of it. Literally, it stuck out to me. Here you go. And let's just introduce. Oops, bear with me, everybody, because I think that's significant what you're referring to there. You're talking about this image, right? Let it just come up on the screen. Is it that one?
Yeah.
A rough guide to hell. Talk to us about that, because that is a picture with a lot of information in, isn't it?
Yeah. So the Economist has got a bit of a reputation for its covers for being like predictive programming. And in this particular one, if you can see the two red shapes about just underneath the words "A Rough Guide to Hell," they're the two paragliders, and they're fighting. One of them has an Israeli flag on his helmet, and the other one has a Hamas label on him. And they're fighting in the skies over, a blood red river, and the devil's overseeing what's going on. And he's got levers with climate change, and there's Barack Obama in a little boat there, and it says Pride on it. And it has all the cast of the world news at the time. But this cover predates the paragliding Hamas story by, I think, it's 2013, I think it says at the top.
It is December the 22nd, 2012 to January the 4th, 2013. It's a special holiday double issue. So yeah, that's significantly far ahead, isn't it?
So that's quite a coincidence. And so these are the kind of coincidences you start to notice if you're paying attention. And you also notice, for example, I like to get back to things that I can actually prove. So for example, in EastEnders, they had a scene in which they brought in an anti-vaxxer into the corner shop, and the anti-vaxxer was a white woman, and the shopkeeper was black, and there's another customer in the shop, and he is brown. And so the ethnic minorities were saying, "Oh, you must get your vaccination," and the white lady was portrayed as being uneducated and uncouth, and she's like she's buying her cigarettes and stuff like this. And they push onto the public. They use their soap operas to push these narratives. And another one, I think, was also Coronation Street, where just at the cusp of when people were starting to collapse, they had a scene where a young person was playing five-a-side football and collapsed and had a heart complaint.
Yes.
So these are things that I can tell you happen that sort of prime the audience to expect to normalize things in the way that they've put defibrillators on the streets or in villages all over the place, which is completely pointless, because people don't tend to time their heart attacks to collapse exactly outside a defibrillator.
No, oddly enough. But the thing is, like you say, it can in its own way be quite fun spotting it. I've been doing this for an awful long time, right? I also raised my daughter in a way that I kind of debriefed her after she would watch videos or TV, because I wanted her to be absolutely on top of what she was watching. Because a lot of the time I feel that we mindlessly watch. And the problem about mindless watching is it's not called a program for no good reason, right? I mean, it's literally called a program. So it's telling us what the deal is. But I think some of the examples that you found are tremendous. I will put links to both your articles in the description when the show finishes. But I think that you've gone into it so deep that you are now capable of really looking at it as a big overview picture. But this has been going on a long time, hasn't it? A long time, because one example you use, for example, is about a book that was written about the secret origins of World War I. We're talking a long time ago here, right? What do you have to say about that one?
Well, the reason I pulled out that example is because the book that I took the example from is called like the Hidden History of World War I, I think. And now it in the book, they explain how in order to prime the British public to not only accept a war with Germany, but to be enthusiastic for it, they had to portray Germany as a villain. Now, Germany was an emerging powerhouse and was a center of culture and music and arts. It was like a jewel in Europe. And so, and we don't have at the time particular beef with Germany. The beef was more with France, right? That was still the traditional enemy. So they had to change that. So in order to do that, they started commissioning books and implanting articles into the mainstream press. And the novels that they would produce would portray Germany as a threat, that they were going to invade the UK and invade Britain and generate a fear. So in one of the books, and we're talking at the very turn of the century, it sold 1 million copies, which is a lot of copies for a population that would have been smaller than what we have now. And so they had a series of these books, and they spawned copycat novels, adventure stories about how the Germans were going to come, and they had them invading up the east coast of England. So, but there was a concerted propaganda effort because they knew they wanted to crush Germany because it was a competing force with the old British Empire, and that was their tactic for doing it. So when you can see it and it's shown and documented in that way that was what was happening, then you have to question, could that be happening today? And I think it happens all the time. I think not necessarily predictably, I think other ones that we can see. So if you've woken up to, say, the idea that the moon landings are suspect, or 9/11, a lot of these, or Pearl Harbor, which is documented to have been allowed to happen, they reinforce the accepted narratives with major Hollywood movies. That's what they do. They go into their movies. And so, as you say, when we're in that suggestive state, when we're in that receptive state to hypnosis, and when our subconscious is vulnerable, they plant their stories in there and get us thinking a certain way about whatever the country is, or the protagonist they want us to like or dislike.
And so do you think that the ultimate aim is to prep us for what's coming, but also to almost break down any barriers that we may have when we experience whatever it is, the event? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's what I was mentioning before, because I think the ideas are sometimes so shocking and unbelievable, and they're expecting such a departure from the norm, whether it's with 9/11 or whether it's with, the scamdemic. They're asking us to believe in something and to behave in ways that we don't normally behave. So I think that sometimes they prime us subconsciously to the idea that these things are possible, so that it's just that little bit more acceptable when it happens. It's still shocking, to see planes fly into buildings but it normalizes it. This is what terrorists do. Right. This is what you do in a pandemic. We all lock our doors and we don't go out. We don't see anyone for 18 months. It normalizes something because but you don't know that that's what's happened when you've watched these movies, or you've been, or like, for example, the Coronation Street example and the soap operas. They normalize taking the vaccine. They normalize slightly looking down your nose at the person who has an independent thought. They normalize the idea of somebody collapsing, a young kid playing five-side football, whereas these things are absolutely abnormal and should never be accepted and should never be normalized. So they're doing that. But I also think there's a touch of mockery to some of it, because they're sort of telling you what they're doing.
Right. I do feel that we go through that a lot, right? Is that people say to me often, I'm sure this is about provoking us in one way or another, right? But I mean, so there are loads. I mean, there's so much more than we can even begin to cover, but there's loads of other areas that you also cover. You look at the whole idea of the rainbow, which was used during the C-19 for both the NHS, and obviously it's all part of the LGBTQ agenda as well. This is one of my favorite ones. Oh, no, wrong one. Get that off the stage. Excuse me. This is something else. This was Batman, right? This was, again, brilliant, because this is exactly what they told us, right? The mask. What is it that says? Let me just read it.
It says the mask is not for you. It's for the people you care about.
It's to protect the people you care about, which was the huge message that they sent out, obviously, from the Nudge Unit in Downing Street. So this is significant. I think there is something in it. I mean, I know there is something in it, but I think it is quite hard. What you started at the top saying is it's quite difficult for people who this is a new idea to them. It does seem a little bit insane, but I think the sheer volume of examples you use is quite overwhelming, really. I do. People say this is all about shaping the new world order. Is it?
Well, ultimately, yeah, they have to get us to accept their agendas. And so I think, for example, like you just mentioned there, the rainbows. So if we get a generation of children to put rainbows in the window and see that as a symbol of hope and a symbol of freedom because they're locked in their homes, what effect does that have on them when they see rainbows associated with transgender? I mean, the idea is kind of, I even had a thought, and this is maybe seem even crazier. People think this is a bit crazy, because I think what I wanted to touch on there before I say my crazy thought, something a bit more sane, is that one thing I'm always trying to communicate is the extent of the control. Now, people who've woken up to the pandemic scam, they may have seen the extent of the control, because everywhere joined in the propaganda, like whether it was on your bus, in your supermarket, everywhere you went had very quickly, almost immediately, they had perspex screens and arrows on the floors and signs on doors and windows, and it was at work, and it was everywhere. It was very few places, television. So that shows you the extent of the sort of the propaganda armory they have, right? And the extent of that they can force compliance upon businesses whether they like it or not, which then has a knock-on effect to the amount of propaganda we receive. So you can see the extent of that control. So when I start suggesting predictive programming in the movies or in television, people may think that's a bit batty, but at the same time, they've just experienced it. And that's why I keep referring to the clear examples, like the soap operas or the things that we put in the movies, because they are there. And those were part of a propaganda arsenal. But my contention would be that what if it's never switched off? What if it's always ongoing, just in subtle ways? So like you've seen rainbow flags for the children, and maybe that's a primer for the next level when they hit puberty and become adult, that they have that affiliation with the rainbow. You know, I don't think these things have started in the past 10 years or 5 years. I think it's been going on a very long time. Like you look at the kind of things that kids are given attachments to. It's like spaceships and Star Wars and Star Trek. It feeds into this idea that the notion of the dubious notion that we've achieved space travel is true. You know, it's this kind of priming.
Let me read you some comments. We have a lot of comments. Ven says, look forward to reading those articles. And Music Realm, interesting one. Interpretation is key. I feel that a lot of this is misinterpretation. Pareidolia, obviously pareidolia, you know what that is. It's where people think they see Jesus in their toast and everything, that sort of thing, right? Of the cognitive thinking, then give you a bias towards predictive programming. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I absolutely I take on board that, and I have put examples in my articles that may well be nothing to do with predictive programming, and but I would say as well, because there is this that you're open to that sort of confirmation bias, of course, and you can see things everywhere, but at the same time, we don't live in a normal world. No, we like if people accept that there are satanic pedophiles at work, right? Or if there are Freemasons at work, or any kind of hidden agenda, then it sort of stands to reason that they would use veiled language and veiled symbols. I mean, we all accept that there are symbols in life. Different religions use different symbols. Now, we accept it when the CIA or the FBI tell us, oh, there are pedophile symbols. But in terms of, that came out around the Pizzagate scandal. And now, if you accept that those symbols are used, you can look out for them. It's just that sometimes we're not accepting of the symbols that are being put in front of our face,
Yes, exactly. Because it's almost difficult to believe, isn't it? But I should say Music Realm, the same person who just gave that comment, goes on to say predictive programming is real. Ross, I will clip this section. Absolutely, I will. See how we are living. Just a comment really says the provocation causes further division. I think obviously there's a degree of that. Marie says, how does one find Francis O'Neill? You can find him on Substack. At the end of the show, I will put links to his Substack in the description below. He's also on X as well. Anything else that I just wanted? Oh, yeah, this is a good one. Shug says, revelation of the method, in quotes, is not about informing you. It's about letting you know what they plan so that we will collectively manifest it into reality. You're nodding your head there.
Well, I think that's true, isn't it, to a degree? Because if you accept it as normal, then because you've been primed to accept it as normal, like then you allow things to go by that you would never accept normally. The revelation of the method is also thought to be have this sort of karmic element to it, where if you consent to something, you're allowing it to happen. So that let's say if I encourage somebody to kill somebody, their karma will be on them. if I encourage something to harm themselves, like, you know, taking a poisonous injection, for example, the karma would be on them. Whereas if I did it myself, I might take the spiritual responsibility with me. So sometimes some of this predictive programming is to engineer our behavior. I just want to refer to quickly I mentioned in the article, there's a hypnotist called Darren Brown, and he did a which I find really fascinating. This example, he asked somebody, think of a song.
Yeah.
He said, think of a song. And the man called Christians thinks of his song in his head. Now, Darren Brown then asks him questions. And as he's asking questions, a band comes out behind him playing the song that the man is thinking of. And the man thinking, well, how's he done that? Well, how he did that was because he planted people whistling and humming the song around Christian early throughout the day.
Right.
To provoke the desired response. And I think that's the essential. If you think about controlling the masses, and if you're one of the, you know, controlling overlords, how are you going to do that? Now, obviously, they want to put chips in your brains to make it really simple. But the simplest way that would be the simplest way to do it. But they're not there yet. They haven't encouraged us all to put chips in our brains. So they have to do it by thinking that we're in charge of our responses. And one of the ways they do that, the only way they communicate with us is mainly through screens and billboards. So to me, it stands to reason that they would be using their screens and billboards to provoke the desired responses.
Do you think Dilip says NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, is it similar? Do they cross over? I suppose they work together, don't they?
Well, yeah. I mean, for example, I remember one of the first times I was on a phone and I was speaking to a relative and saying what was going on I said, it's all nonsense, the pandemic lockdowns. And I was trying to convince them, but I'm coming from left field. And the response I get is, you're not a COVID denier, are you? So they're using programmed language because I'm getting a programmed response, right?
Wow.
But they've not come up with that term themselves. And this is there's a famous quote about how responses and tastes and behaviors are not programmed, is not the word they use, but are controlled by people. Molded is the word. Are molded by men we have never met.
Right.
That's an old quote. Wow. And I think that's the word of like the grandfather of propaganda, or the godfather of propaganda, Edward Bernays. These kind of people, they've worked on this kind of behavioral modification. They have behavioral scientists working out how to trigger the correct responses. If you don't think that they're putting that into your television program or the movies that require funding and government permissions, I think that this is why I wrote the articles. I think that people, I'd like to raise awareness of at least the possibility. I'm always open to being wrong.
Well, Sham, I think probably sums it up for most of us. It's fascinating, but freaky. And it is, because once you start to delve into this sort of stuff, then you start to see not only our hidden history, but what's also taking place at this moment in time. Francis, we have to let you go, which is more the pity, because I'm loving this conversation, but absolutely wonderful to have you with us. Take home message for everybody from this conversation. What do you reckon?
I just want to say that Batman example predated the pandemic by about 10 years or something that we talked about. And he was speaking to another character. So the take home, and he's telling people that you have to wear a mask to protect yourself. And I think even just that kind of example, it's so pertinent and so apposite, and yet doesn't really fit in it has no real reason to be in the movie. I think those kind of things, we have to look out for them. We have to look out for the way we're being programmed. There's all kinds of agendas, and whether it's climate change or trans agendas or transhumanism, and they are planting storylines, whether it's or it's conditioning people through Black Mirror, or the actual Black Mirror that are our telephones that we hold in our hands. And I think I just like people to consider the possibility without dismissing it as crazy, because there's lots of crazy things out there that we've experienced that at one time were dismissed by people as impossible, and we've just lived through them.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate this. Of course, is what we're both going to be at the 21st of June. Hyde Park, special host Matt Landman. He's obviously been on Wake Up with us, and I'm going to be there. I'm hoping to be able to run a live stream. Francis is also going to be talking. Mark Devlin, Daz Bander there. I'm looking forward to it. I'll get to see you, Francis.
That'd be good. I think there's probably going to be more speakers as well. It's all gathering momentum as we go. But again, this is another thing. Only up until a couple of weeks ago, when the government said they were going to be dimming the sun, people were telling us that you couldn't dim the sun, that people dismiss things as being beyond the realms of possibility, which are becoming unveiled to us as not only possible, but realities that are being proposed by our governments.
Brilliant.
So it just ties in, yeah.
Thank you so much, Francis O'Neill, everybody. I will see you soon. Take good care of yourself. Have a lovely Wednesday evening. And thank you so much for all of that. Take good care of yourself. Francis O'Neill.
Thank you, Sonia. Bye-bye.
Lovely to have him with us. Absolutely lovely. I actually love his work. I am a fan of his work, as you can clearly all tell. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. How are you, kids? How are you? Right. I better bomb through because I don't want to be overly late on this. But I do want to talk briefly about Virginia Giuffre. Very interesting. More information has now been released into the public domain about Virginia Giuffre. She's the woman, of course, who claimed that she was trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein to Prince Andrew and who killed herself on April 25th at her farmhouse north of Perth after, according to her family, the toll of abuse became unbearable. And I had some knowledge about what was going on in the background, which is why unusually for me, I didn't automatically say I believe that they've got her. And I did believe then, and I still believe that, by the way, that she did take her own life, although other people, of course, don't always agree with me. And that's fine, because we're all allowed to disagree. But some of the knowledge that I had, and I did share it with you at the time, was the fact that she was also being sued. And I wondered whether that was weighing heavily on her. Well, 2 weeks later, lo and behold, legacy media finally caught up with what I was saying, not obviously from me, but they finally found out the information that we had 2 weeks ago. And I talked about the court case regarding Virginia and Rena O. And according to sources now, this was a concern to Virginia. And part of it was that she stood to lose a significant chunk of the money that she had been given in her settlement with Prince Andrew. Now, of course, remember, it was reported that she had been given £12 million by Prince Andrew. Some said it had come from the Queen. We don't actually know the true sum. We don't, but we do know the true sum of what she was being sued for by Rena O, which is a 7.5 million lawsuit. And that apparently will now pass to Miss Giuffre's estate following her death on April the 25th. I'm not quite sure how that works legally. The person is no longer around. And the idea was that Virginia was being sued by Rena O. And I know this in part because I've talked to Rena O's husband. And Virginia was being sued for falsely describing Rena O as a girlfriend of Epstein and one of Epstein's recruiters. Well, lots of people said the reverse. So lots of people said, actually, in truth, Virginia was very much one of the recruiters bringing in these teenage girls. Now, I've always maintained Virginia and the teen females are not the story of Epstein. And bit by bit, I think we're starting to see that now. I've always maintained that the real story is one of child abuse. I think there's quite some stuff coming out at the moment that I've no idea whether it's true or not. Check this out. This is Victoria Harvey. She's ex of Prince Andrew. Now, she's probably Virginia's biggest nemesis, and Virginia fans hate her. But I'm not going to play it because people hate her, right? That would be daft. But basically, Victoria Harvey is all over the place saying, it's a lie. None of that happened with Andrew. Well, she's gone one step further now. She gave an interview with Tom Swarbrick on LBC in which she claimed that the FBI have a recording of Virginia admitting that nothing happened with Andrew. Check this out. See what you think.
We have Virginia recordings, Giuffre phone recordings, saying nothing happened to Andrew. Right.
You get that? We have phone recordings of Virginia saying nothing happened with Andrew. And actually what she goes on to say was that she'd got these, recordings and they're with the FBI. And unless the FBI now release this information, they're going to put the tapes and the information out themselves. Now, this is actually very significant in some respects because she'd have to, Victoria Harvey, no great fan here, by the way, and I definitely won't be calling her lady. But she'd have to be really insane to claim something exists if it actually doesn't, because sooner or later she's going to be held to account for that, right? So I want to hear that. I really genuinely want to hear that, and I think many people would. And actually, there was rumours that very recording was apparently going to be used regarding Prince Andrew when he was in the lawsuit with Virginia. Well, why wasn't it used? So we shall see. I think this is in significant contrast to what is being claimed. The whole idea that it was just a bunch of teen girls who were giving massages to rich people. And what we're hearing, for example, from Attorney General Pam Bondi is excuse me, is that they actually have footage that the FBI has been reviewing tens of thousands of videos of Jeffrey Epstein, either engaged in child sexual abuse or watching child sexual abuse. So that's a completely different story to what the likes of Virginia and Maria Farmer and that lot have said, right? Completely different story. And obviously we were told that Jeffrey Epstein died in his prison cell in 2019 while awaiting trial for sex trafficking. And I definitely don't believe for a second that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. That would just be too ridiculous for words, frankly, too ridiculous for words. Anyway, we shall see. I don't understand how it works that a lawsuit for defamation can be passed to an estate. I don't understand how that works. That might be something very particular to America, but I find that curious, frankly, So there's so much more going on behind the scenes. But you know what? Still, rest in peace, Virginia, because whether she was an honest character, and it wasn't my experience that she was particularly honest, whether she was honest or not, I do believe that she had a really difficult childhood. I believe that she was let down by her family. She was failed. I believe that she was molested as a child. I believe she was a runaway who was put into foster care. And I believe that she was easy pickings for predators like Maxwell and Epstein. And those things make me sad. Those things make me genuinely sad, but we shall see. I think it's going to be interesting what's going to come out. And I meant to show this. Lovely Peter Greenhall sent me a stash of geoengineering pictures. Just moving on because I'm looking at the time. Sent me a stash of geoengineering pictures. And this was actually from last Friday. And people are telling me how clear it is today. It looks kind of nice out there. But I was actually astonished by this. I want to share this with you because I think this is like a startling image. Look at that. I mean, that is literally a startling image, isn't it? That looks like something that's been created that isn't real at all. Thank you for sending that in, Peter. I appreciate that very, very much. We always like to keep an eye on that. Want to look briefly at this. Diddy trial continues in New York. Day 3. There's 8 men and 4 women on the jury. Their professions range from investment analyst, there's an architect, there's a scientist, there's a deli clerk, there's a massage therapist. They are residents of Manhattan, the Bronx, and Westchester, all in the surrounding area. There is alternates for 4 men and 2 women. There are very serious allegations being made on the witness stand. That is a court illustration of Cassie Ventura, former partner of of Sean Puffy Combs, and the stuff that she's saying is, well, it's just awful. I mean, as well as it being about a substantially debauched lifestyle, there is also a great deal of violence that has been alleged. And Cassie is back there again today. Absolutely humiliating details. She's recounting a 10-year period when she had a relationship with him. And the idea is that the prosecutions say that for decades, Combs ran a criminal enterprise built around trafficking victims, with his inner circle helping to cover up his offenses. And already on Monday, we heard from Israel Flores, who was actually working hotel security when that very famous picture now of Combs kicking Cassie in a hotel was shown, and Israel Flores testified to that. We also heard from Daniel Philippe. He said he was a professional stripper who was paid to have sex with Cassie while Combs watched. That's a regular thing. There's allegations that people were instructed to urinate on Cassie. Some people, even in testimony, have said that it was Cassie herself who instructed that. This is all obviously all hinged around essentially their orgies, which they call freak-offs. And I really kind of object to the title freak-off because it makes it sound fun, right? But that's not really the impression that we're getting here at all. It's really horrible. The whole thing is painting him as a very violent, jealous man. He couldn't take any attention that Cassie got from other men. He hired male escorts to do all these manner of things to her. And the thing is, I think one of the reasons they told the urination story is because it's similar to R. Kelly. R. Kelly very famously urinated on his victims. And of course, R. Kelly is probably in prison for practically the rest of his life, right? And also what's interesting at this stage, of course, with Diddy is that no one else has been charged. Now, in order for them to prove a conspiracy, it has to involve at least one other person. right? And so I think they're going to probably start as this trial develops, they're going to be looking more at his staff, his fixers, his organizers. Were they threatened? The whole idea is that he like threatened people into action. All of this obviously started when Cassie submitted a lawsuit in 2023, and Diddy ended up settling with her the next day. And Cassie talks about some sexual encounters that could last up to 10 hours at a time. Just at a time. No, that was Philip. That was the stripper who said that. No, that is what he said. He said that he was engaged and some of them could last for up to 10 hours. And what would happen is that after he'd finished whatever with Cassie, Diddy and Cassie would then go off into another room and they would return. They would either release him from further duties or they would continue. But he said that the longest one of that kind lasted for 10 hours. And some people will say, and I've seen it already, how can she have gone along with this for 10 years? Well, first of all, let's be clear here. She met him when she was only 19 years old. Okay. And their relationship actually started when she was 21 and he was 37. And she wanted desperately to be in the music industry. And unfortunately, that desperation makes people very, very vulnerable. And I've been involved in an abusive relationship and those things creep up on you, right? It's really easy to judge, but it is amazing how easy abuse can creep up without you realizing it, because like France is just talking about, it becomes normalized. And I think that's probably what happened with her, but it's just awful. It's horrendous to hear the details and thoroughly unpleasant. Donald Trump's having a great time. Actually, I'm really enjoying watching that tour. That's interesting as well. Middle East tour continues today with the president landing in Qatar. Scene of some controversy. Has anybody seen his aeroplane? I wonder if I can bring it in. His aeroplane gifted to him. Let me just show you if I can see it. Here it is. Actually, this is Air Force One. Oh, there was an issue. It won't let me show it. So basically what has happened is that Qatar have gifted him a luxury Boeing 747, $400 million. And Trump has said it's an opportunity too valuable to refuse. He said that, these people like really, far ahead and they've got fantastic and it would be ridiculous. It's all part of the deal. He's very irritated by the question about the ethics of accepting such a gift. And he's got a full media team with him. One of my favorite things so far is what he had to say about Gaza. Have a listen to this.
Got to be good to Gaza. Those people are suffering. We got to be good to Gaza. We're going to take care of that. There's a very big need for medicine, food and medicine, and we're taking care of it.
In terms of like opening up more access points, or
very hard.
Pushing the Israelis.
We are.
To open up more access
very
points.
Hard to get food and medicine into Gaza.
How did the Prime Minister respond to that?
Well, felt well about it.
Well, he felt well about it. Sure he did. I'm sure Netanyahu was absolutely overjoyed. And what a change, though. What a reversal of what we've seen, because over the last month, we've seen, things like Trump release AI cartoons where he's essentially king of Gaza. And even though it is Christian and Muslim there, they'd had casinos and, belly dancers and all this kind of stuff. And now he's saying we've got to be good to Gaza. And you have to wonder whether this, of course, is largely to do with his Middle East tour. And it's a huge tech thing as well. Elon Musk is there. There are representatives from Amazon, from Google with him. And one of the reasons that I'm fascinated about it is because Donald Trump is a deals man, right? So he's conducting this like a business deal. And it is very interesting to watch and see how they go about it. And, but, whether it will have any impact on what's going on in Israel and Gaza remains to be seen. I suggest it will. What are your thoughts in the comments, kids? Sandy doesn't believe him. And I think, and Simon, that's a really good point, noticing us noticing. And they're eating the pets of the people. Takeover of Gaza, I reckon, by the elites. Okay, so very cynical about it. But let me tell you something. Yes, he has. Now, Jeff, he has done that. Trump has absolutely distanced himself from Netanyahu. Yes, he has. I mean, there's no doubt about it. A lot of the words that he's been using this week, this was interesting. This was them all at the conference, hardly any women around, of course, what you'd expect, right? But I just want to say this, right? From time to time, I get unsolicited calls from call centers. I'm sure we all do. And I'm always irked by them, but I try and remain civil. Now, on Monday, I received another, and this time with a difference, right? And I'm relating it to some of this. Instead of starting the conversation with hello, the guy started the conversation with assalamu alaikum, right? I can't pronounce it. You know what I'm saying. It's an Arabic greeting that translates as peace be upon you. Muslims say it to each other all the time. And this was the same day that Trump made worldwide news for accepting this aeroplane, right? And also being in the Middle East. And on the surface of it, the two incidences may seem completely unrelated, and perhaps they are, but maybe they aren't. Maybe they aren't. Maybe it was some higher conscious message for me to acknowledge, or maybe it was an indication of our times when fears that Islam and its language will take over the Western world. I don't know. Wa alaikum salam. There you go. Cautiously optimistic. Elon Musk seemed very uncomfortable to me, not his usual jovial self with Trump. Think he's woken up. Amy, I noticed he looked quite uncomfortable, to be fair. And just quickly, I don't believe in cancel culture, as many know, but I do believe in people talking with their wallets. And as such, I will not be purchasing from Ben and Jerry anytime soon, seeing as the ice cream makers seem determined to ignore women's rights and ignore the Supreme Court ruling the other week. They are literally encouraging people to support the Good Law Project, which is Fox killer barrister Jolyon Maugham's project that seeks to challenge the Supreme Court ruling. Supreme Court ruling is not law. It just essentially says that the Equality Act stands, and that is women are female. It's a biological expression. It's not a gender expression. And so what's happening is Ben and Jerry are saying we should all be alarmed by the Supreme Court ruling on trans rights last month. The thing about letting rights get stripped away is it doesn't stop with just one group. By standing up for trans rights, we stand up for all our rights. But that's a lie, though. When you do that, you discount women, children, and actually people who are same-sex attracted as one starter. What about them, Ben and Jerry? Anyway, Health Freedom says more like Tom and Jerry, more like. And so what Ben and Jerry are doing are referring people to ridiculous Good Law Project, who are apparently legally challenging the Supreme Court judgment. But I believe that the Supreme Court judgment have put out another piece of information today where they are they're clarifying what they meant. So we shall see. No, they won't, John. They just won't accept it. And spot the brainwashers. What's that? Yes. M&S, sure you've heard about that. That's been going on for over a week now. They are now warning shoppers they could be targeted by scammers after hackers stole customers' contact details. And if you remember last week, I showed you some video footage. I'd gone into my local co-op, right? And I went in and all the fruit and veg was empty. Well, I went back in again yesterday and kind of experimentally, because I just thought, let's see what it's looking like a week on. And this is what I discovered. Let me just show you what I discovered, if I can. Wednesday Picks desktop. Here we go. This is literally the same store. Kind of empty. So I just wanted to show that again, not to alarm anybody. We don't do alarmism around here, but just to say be prepared, because their sign said we're having some, difficulty with stock. And that's a week on, and the shelves and the fruit and veg is more bare and empty than ever before, right? So who knows? Who knows? And there's that year again. Cancer vaccine could be available by 2030. We are now being told by scientists behind the C19 jab, of course. And here's what I want to see more of on our streets. My daughter took this picture for me. I love this street art. Can you see it? It's a striking 30-meter high mural celebrating the importance of local biodiversity and freshwater ecosystems. It's been unveiled in Twickenham, just down the road from us, unveiled rather. And obviously a lot of the hoopla around it, I cannot stand. I don't need to tell you, I don't buy into the whole climate change narrative. Climate has always been changing. I don't buy into the hoax, not at all. But I want to see more street art. I want to see more street art. Do you get arrested? Do you in the comments? I do want to see more street art. This was done by Vsod, who is an artist from Italy, and it's actually beautiful. And I meant to bring up the video, but I don't have it to hand because you can see it much more closely. And I appreciate art. I appreciate creativity. And I'm also come from a tradition of hip hop and graffiti, good graffiti. I'm not just talking about somebody tagging their name somewhere, but like good graffiti. And I still appreciate it. And I love it. I love it. Yes, I do indeed. And that is it for the show for tonight. Beautiful people. It is beautiful, Robert. It looks great. I love it. And I got an email from Co-op about the scarcity and their effort to correct it. Starting with fresh fruit and veg. Is that right, Dilip? Is that right? Street art is great. We should have more, right? We should have more. And Drax and King Robbo are London ladies' favourites. Right, beautiful people. I'm going to go. And because it's 6:04 and it's time for me to go. And I love you loads. And I will see you on Friday. I'm going on Friday's show. I'm doing an investigation. I've had a number of suggestions, which I'd asked for from you, our beautiful viewers. And the first one I'm going to start with is not one I'm going to tell you about. I'll tell you on Friday. But Friday's episode is our investigation episode. Yes, it is. Bye, ducks. Bye, ducks. Yes, indeed. And just want to end on a quote. Of course, the whole theme all week has been about transformation, the Scorpion full moon. I really feel it. I've been feeling it so strongly, like, you know, birth, death, rebirth. I've really been feeling it so strongly. And I just picked up a quote about it because I just like it so very, very much. And it's this, and that is transformation is not about becoming something you're not, but rather becoming the best version of something that you already are. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Have a beautiful, beautiful evening. And I will see you Friday. And thank you as ever to you wonderful, wonderful people. Have a lovely evening. See you Friday, everybody. Take good care of yourself. Love you lots.